Welcome back to Henry Felix Discourses, where we talk about CRT in the schools and the damage it's doing to them with specific examples so that you don't have to rely on the news to tell you about generalities. You can look at some actual things that I've been able to find about a number of different places, and right now we're talking about Winsor. And today we'll be talking about wellness, as you saw from the thumbnail, I believe. Now, as far as getting to this PDF that I'll be reading from, I just want to review that really quickly in case you want to do that. You go to Winsor School, Mass, put that in, click on that. It will take you to the home page. You go to the upper right here where it says menu, click on that. You hover over the word about, you go over here, and then down to the bottom, equity and inclusion. That takes you to this page. Then you go down to the bottom of this page, almost, not totally to the bottom, but almost a little way. DEI report, click that. Takes you to this page. And then you scroll down just a little bit, lift every voice, and then click on read the report, and it downloads the PDF for you. I'll also put the link in the description. So, I'm thinking for this one, instead of starting with that PDF, I'd like to start with the handbook itself and talk about what wellness says about itself before that part about the philosophy as it fits in with DEI. So it says the Winsor community understands that wellness, both personal and community-wide, drives deep, meaningful learning and leads to success in the pursuit of personal aspirations and in making purposeful contributions to the world. Okay, so that has mission statement written all over it. I've got nothing to criticize about that. I think wellness is, by its very nature, a very vague concept, and most of it has to do at a school. Most of it, or a lot of it, has to do with psychological wellness, and that's a very vague topic. For all the work that we've put into psychology and studying the brain and the mind and philosophy, we have a very tenuous understanding of how the mind works. And in general, what really happens is people do their best. And I have every confidence that they are doing their best. The only thing to really know about what's happening at Winsor, and it can happen at any school, is that the heavy hand of DEI is making itself felt. And let's have a look. Here it says, wellness. In the lower school, health classes prioritize topics related to social emotional learning as they explore their own development as adolescents and individuals. Now, social emotional learning, that's come up just vaguely once or twice in this channel, but this is the website they reference when they talk about social emotional learning. Let's see what they say. The big picture is it started out as a really good idea, and it's been co-opted by CRT/DEI. But we'll read this first paragraph. We define social and emotional learning, SEL, as an integral part of education and human development. SEL is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals. Feel and show empathy for others, ding, ding, there's that word, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. So empathy. Out of all of this, the number one thing about SEL is managing emotions and how you manage your emotions when you're learning. That's really the most important thing. The rest of this is kind of like gobbledygook a little bit. It's sort of boilerplate, blah, blah, blah. You could put that in a million different ways and it'd all say the same thing. But that's pretty much where it began. How do we get students to feel good at school, feel good about goals? And generally that has been done with just having a good teacher, a good homeroom teacher. High schools started bringing in the counselors and your advisors at some point. And those are all important. If you've got a good relationship with them, then you'll generally have a good relationship with the school. And this particular effort did a pretty good job with that. It has been co-opted, though, more and more, and continuing. You can kind of see a little idea of that right here, a little hint of it, where it says, how does SEL support equity? So they present it as if equity, DEI is not the number one thing, but it's kind of pretty much getting that way now. I was in a fairly lengthy online debate with someone at one point where it all started with the idea of whether students should be able to take tests over again. And the person was saying they should always be able to take the test over again. And I was saying, well, sometimes you should do that, but only to a point. And my main point was that if you're always able to take the test over again, it really becomes a torture to the student, because you could always go back and do it again, and you could earn another point or a little bit more. And I've seen students go through that, and as in through that, I don't want to say it's like an ordeal or anything, but it's not fun, because you take the test and then the teacher's back there. Well, why don't you take it again? Give it another try, and you can. And it does two things. First of all, they don't really take the first try that seriously. They just take the first one and see pretty much how well they did, and then that gives them an idea of how much more they actually have to study to get a good grade. So that just lengthens the entire process out. It also it's a lack of accountability, which I don't think is a great thing. But also, once someone is not doing that well, and the teacher keeps coming back and saying, well, you can still take it again, you can still do it again, it just really gets to be like this oppressive pain in the neck that you really just would like to have end. And sometimes you just want to take the C and move on. And I think overall, that's better. You should just learn how to study, take the test, you see what you got. And if you didn't like it, you can do better on the next test, but not always just keep rehashing. Well, anyway, that was my thought. She didn't agree. And this conversation blossomed into this huge philosophy that she was talking about that really is DEI, and it's a combination of a number of different things. And it was eye-opening to me what SEL really means. And we'll talk about it more another time, but there's a lot more to it than just where it started, which was managing emotions, feeling good at school, knowing how to manage difficulties and failures and learning from them and all that kind of good stuff. And there was that same evangelical attitude that she just felt that she knew. And if I wasn't understanding, it's because she hasn't explained it well enough or loudly enough. And it was interesting. Anyway, why don't we get back to what it says about wellness? That was a little bit of a digression. And I don't apologize for that, because SEL is a digression that we should be aware of. And so is DEI. All right. But continuing on, so they talk about social emotional learning. The upper school health curriculum is designed so that students explore their sense of self through a range of different lenses and topics. At least they acknowledge a range of different lenses. Because the lens thing is always a red flag when they say seeing it through a lens, because that's a deliberate distortion of reality according to a certain philosophy or ideology. It's really not a philosophy. It's not developed enough to be a philosophy. But it's seeing things through an ideology on purpose, and that's a red flag. All right, and topics. In Class 5, which is freshman year, students develop deep insights into their own values and beliefs and ask critical questions about gender relationships and human sexuality. These are things that people are thinking about. That's all legitimate. And, it's a matter of what the teacher makes it. I do just notice that gender is the first thing on there because that's what's in the news right now. And it just reflects that there's an activist quality to this, and it's very much grounded in current events. Students reflect on their families, and their culture's social emotional values, wants, and needs. So this is where DEI comes into social emotional learning, and now it's all of a sudden a society-wide social emotional values, wants, and needs concept, and that's what happened to it. Class 6, health, that will be sophomore year, health provides a wide range of opportunities for students to learn about themselves, while also considering social inequalities and their effect on well-being. Inequalities, okay, there's there's that. I'm just pointing out that it's there. DEI is in everything. In Class 7, the last year of required health classes, students are expected to address the questions they have about themselves, others, and the world. So, as I said, you do your best with wellness, right? You do your best. We don't know how the mind works. We're a long way from knowing how the mind works. Here, social inequalities, we see a lot of signs that they feel like they do know, because DEI is the answer. It's the answer to everything. It should be in everything. It should always be there. Now, there's a little bit more to say about wellness according to what they've got in the handbook, which is to go down here. It's a number of things. It's academic support, and this talks about your typical average academic support. And I mean that's a good thing, that it's typical and average, because high school and middle school, which is what Winsor is, does not have to contain groundbreaking material and everything. That's really not the level where people are. Counseling, okay, this is all pretty standard stuff, but I just see the culturally inclusive lens. The counseling team offers a culturally inclusive lens while providing mental health support. Okay, I'm not really sure if I can say whether I understand what the counseling team offers a culturally inclusive lens means. Other than that, again, they're deliberately viewing reality through an ideology. That's what a lens means. And I don't really see why it needs to be in that sentence, actually, because when it comes to counseling, everything else in this paragraph is pretty normal. Counseling at Winsor supports students' social and emotional well-being through advocacy, education, and collaboration. The school counselors work together to support students on their journey towards growth and success. Goes on like that. That's all normal. This is the DEI part, just sort of worming its way in. And I don't know why it needs to be there. And I don't think it helps, actually. Health services, this is the nurse doing what nurses do. Wellness programming and education. This is, it's interesting they talk about, at Winsor, we focus on the education and wellness of the whole child. Now, this holistic idea, it does come up a lot, and whole is related to holistic. And honestly, it's related to totalitarianism. It's like a total solution. Totalitarianism used to be a euphemism. It used to be a good word because they wanted a complete solution to something, not just little bits and pieces of solving a problem. They wanted to look at the big picture, get it all coordinated, and do it right, which is a great way of looking at things in general, in terms of your own personal problems or dealing with anything. But as a culture, as a country, it can turn into complete tyranny, which is why the word totalitarian has a very bad name now. And so we're looking at the wellness of the whole child. That's a good thing. I mean, of course, why wouldn't you? But it's just a sign of the idea of this holistic thing and holistic quality of CRT and DEI, which is putting it into practice. So DEI is supposed to be in the whole school. It's supposed to be part of everything. And this is where it gets to be starting to not just something like a new idea, but it's something that's really infiltrating everything and starts to control everything. So I just want to point that out. It's just one of those things to notice when they're using that word or holistic. It's not always what you think it means. And this doesn't mean that Winsor is a totalitarian state. That's not what I'm trying to say. I don't mean to be to make it sound too critical, but there's that aspect of it. There is a feeling of that when they're using that word and talk the wellness of the whole child. They could just say we focus on the education and wellness of the child. What do you mean by the whole child? So we're going to make everything coordinate, I guess. Good and bad. It's a matter of application. So I just wanted to notice that. That's all. Our curriculum is adaptive to the ever-changing needs of our students. Courses at Winsor are designed with guidance from Social and Emotional Learning Framework. That was the website I pointed out. And some others, and I think I may talk about that at some other point. Peer support, that's all pretty standard stuff. So that's wellness at Winsor. So to sum up, it's hard to really criticize a wellness program. because, as I said, nobody really knows what they're doing with the human mind, and you do the best you can. I think they want to do the best they can, and I think they are doing the best they can. And insofar as DEI is taking over and being the framework for doing the best you can, I think that would be a negative. That's my outlook on it. So anyway, this didn't need to be very long because there's only so much to say about wellness, and there it was. I hope this was informative, and I hope to see you next time. Please leave a like if you liked it. Leave a comment, even share. And I hope you're back.